Well, good evening, everybody. It's I, Nick, Pennsylvania, and I am here with my good friend Brendan Bond, who just hit me with, well, frankly, some controversial news. As you know, it is the dead of winter, and if you are like many of us here in the Atlantic states of the United States, well, we have just a ton of snow rolling around right now. I want to say last week we got 18 to 20 inches varying, and we're getting 3 to 4 today.
Hmm.
And you told me moments ago that you've always been strongly opposed to snowblowers, but yet you just bought one. Where does the animosity come from? What
So,
swayed you?
so I like my parents' house has a pretty big, long gravel driveway, and I think I've taken pride my whole life in just kind of shoveling it. There's some sort of like, you know, Puritan ethic maybe that is just like, it feels good putting a hard day's work in. And every time I saw people with snow blowers, my whole life basically, they would very rarely be working, and I thought it was lazy. I didn't realize that about myself, but I always just did think that. Not proud of it, but that's how I always thought. And even the day before that big storm 2 weeks ago, or a week or so ago, when I was driving around, I saw like dudes getting their, snow blowers out of the garage and gassing them up, and
Yeah.
it looked like everyone was just universally frustrated with them. So even that day before, I was like, huh, people with their snow blowers, a bunch of chumps.
And then 18 inches
Then we
drops
got 18 inches of
overnight.
snow, and by the third time,
Overnight.
yeah. So by the third time I was out there shoveling my driveway, which isn't as big as my parents' was, but it's still a decent sized driveway.
Well, and you've
Um,
got the slope.
yeah, it's a little sloped and everything. So like, but by the third time I was out there, I think my neighbor took pity on me and finally was like, hey man, do you want to borrow my snowblower? And in that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm really trying to work on myself. Yeah, I will borrow your snowblower.
Look
We'll
at
give it a
you.
shot. Let's address some of our preconceived notions about how the world operates. So he brings it over, he shows me how to use it and everything, and he just like walks away. He was very trusting with his snowblower.
Wow, and you are
Uh,
a new neighbor at that. I mean,
yeah,
you've only
yeah,
lived there for months.
right, yeah. So like I fire it up and everything, it gets going, and about 30 seconds in to using this thing on at the time was probably still 10, 12 inches on my driveway. But
Epiphanies.
about 30 seconds in, I realized that I was wrong my entire life.
My God.
Yeah, I was incorrect. Snowblowers are freaking awesome. So,
So you went out and got one.
so I went out and ordered one. Yeah, I was like, you know what? This is an investment in the future.
And now
And
my curious before you even hit me with
mhm,
that did you get the same model that your neighbor has?
it's close. Yeah,
Okay.
it's close. Yeah, because I wanted to get something that was going to like do the job. I knew that one worked. Um,
Mm-hmm.
But of course, when I bought that, I said to myself, "Well, now it's not going to snow anymore. We're not going to see more than 2 inches at a time the next decade." And I thought, you know what? If that's the case, okay, it means it
If
worked.
that's what it took to
Yeah,
get it from
exactly.
snow, 'cause I'll be honest, I don't mind all the snow, but it is
Yeah.
being so bitter cold
Hmm.
that I do mind because I'm paying for these gas bills,
Right.
one.
Hmm.
And when it's so cold that the salt's not doing anything,
Precisely.
it's treacherous. And there's been some really nasty things out on the roads, but it's not all frivolous winter fun over here. And I
Hmm.
appreciate everybody for being patient. We weren't on around last week because I had a big conference, had a big time at a big conference, and in
Hmm.
fact, it was mighty cold as the convention center, one of their boilers blew up a couple
Oof.
days before. It was something. It was something. And we haven't been laying back. You've been working on a topic for a little while that you're very excited about. It's something
Hmm.
that occurred recently, but also we do have some more guests that we're going to be having on. We have some really interesting things lined up. Have had a few people reach out to us recently, and we're not going to expand upon that anymore, other than to say there have been a lot of conversations happening on the other side of the microphones. So excited about everything that is in the future, but I know you're really eager to talk about this. You've been talking about this for weeks. What are we
Yeah.
talking about?
So tonight, Winter fun. When I think of winter fun, one of the things I think about is, in fact, Groundhog Day. Um, I think the Groundhog Day is something that gets a lot of attention this time of year for very good reason. It's one of the few things I think that is probably appropriately hyped in the Commonwealth. There's a lot of things get overhyped, a lot of things get underhyped. I feel like Groundhog Day is right where it should be.
Just the right hypeness.
It's just the right level of hype because for me, it is something that has a very interesting, I think, intersection in like our culture from a folkloric standpoint, because there's a little bit of history mixed into it. There's a little bit of very light paranormal stuff. There is some religious aspects to it from a few different angles. So you have a lot of people coming together to do something that, whenever you say it out loud to someone who isn't from this area, boy, does it sound nuts. It sounds really out there.
Yeah, I would never. No, you're kind of surprising me already when you say there's some supernatural elements to it. I have always just been under the impression that, okay, maybe there's some quasi-ethnic aspects to it, but it probably had more to do with a club, a fraternal order, if you would, and a bunch of maybe alcoholics is too strong a word, but maybe it was just normal behavior at the time. But a bunch of folks doing something silly and taking it very seriously, which is, of course, something I always approve of.
Yeah, which is kind of our modus operandi. It's
Indeed.
it's 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 taking very silly or strange things very seriously. And for those of you who aren't aware, because I know we have quite a few listeners from outside of the country that probably have only heard of Groundhog Day either in passing via memes, or from the 1993 Groundhog Day film starring Bill
Yeah.
Murray, which
Parts of which
is
were filmed about 3 blocks from my house, in
right, very
fact.
close. Yeah. Um, So, for those of you who aren't aware, well, let's explain what Groundhog Day is first, and we'll get into like kind of the history and some of the traditions around it. But like the 10,000 foot view of Groundhog Day is everyone gets together in this small town called Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and they have a big party. Everyone pulls a groundhog out of a stump.
Well, let's pause right there. There's not enough groundhogs for everybody to pull a groundhog out.
You're
There
right. You're
is
right.
a singular. You go up to Gobbler's Knob. There is the club, a semi-selective group, and they pull a singular groundhog out, and it lives in the children's library. Well, the children's section of the local library the rest of the year. But anyhow,
Yes.
one
Yeah.
one one groundhog.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, sorry. I was just trying to give the high level. But yeah, so they have this groundhog and there's a big party, and apparently the groundhog can predict the weather, which sounds kind of crazy, I know, but bear with us here. Basically, if the groundhog sees its shadow on this day, then there will be 6 more weeks of winter. If it doesn't see its shadow, it means there's going to be an early spring. So that is the thing that everyone kind of keys in on, is the fact that this groundhog can apparently predict the weather. Now, again, sounds kind of wild and everything, and as you can imagine, there is a lot of history that kind of goes into this. So the first thing we want to explain is going to groundhog. Again, for those of you who don't have groundhogs where you're at, you're like, what the heck is that? It's a type of marmot. It's also called a woodchuck. My favorite term for a groundhog is a whistle pig.
Classic.
I love the term whistle pig. If I could whistle, I would whistle at them when I see them, but I can't. So I just have to say, oh, there's a good whistle pig. So groundhogs are kind of a bit of a stand-in for where people think that the early traditions of Groundhog Day kind of come from. This used to be something that apparently happened in lots of towns all over the place, all over the eastern seaboard, up into Canada, and before that, over in Europe, according to some people. Now, Punxsutawney, like we said, I didn't realize this. Apparently, Punxsutawney is a Delaware Indian name. it
Yeah,
apparently,
Delaware, Lenape.
yeah,
Yeah.
Delaware Lenape, yeah, and I guess it's what I found online was that stands for the town of the sandflies.
Now that I did not know.
I mean, I saw it referenced a number of places. So like, I don't know what sandflies necessarily are. Um,
My
as to
guess would be just like sort of caddises that
That's
because
kind of what I was thinking.
there's the waterway that runs there's like a good sized stream
Hmm.
that runs through the town. I can't remember what it's called. So for full disclosure, my grandparents lived like the next town
Right.
over from Punxsutawney.
Hmm.
They could walk there if they wanted to. It'd be a long walk, but
But you could do it.
you could do it. Maybe 10 miles. And they both taught in the school district right next door as well.
Hmm.
So I've been to Punxsutawney a number of times all throughout the years, all throughout the seasons.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's a good sized stream that runs through the town, and I'm imagining it's just like the gnats and the caddis that would hatch off that is probably sandflies.
That makes sense. That's kind of what I was thinking as well, but I wasn't quite sure. So, but anyway, so you have this town, and it's kind of been known over the years as like the center for Groundhog's Day. Now, like I said, there are the places that do it. In my humble opinion, a lot of them seem to just be kind of trying to rip off Punxsutawney Phil. Um, and again, the groundhog, his name is Phil. I don't know if we said that yet.
Had not.
Yeah, so the groundhog is a singular groundhog. Then we'll get into the immortality element of this groundhog later. So you're probably wondering why on February 2nd and where does this come from? So there's a lot of other, if you're paying attention, there are a lot of other holidays that fall on the second. You have the Christian holiday of Candlemas. You have the kind of traditional, I guess, pagan Imbolc. And then from a Catholic standpoint, you have St. Bridget's, which is on the second. So there's a lot of stuff happening the second, and there's a good reason why they're all kind of lumped together. I found a quote from this gentleman whose last name is Yoder, who wrote a book on Groundhog Day
And
years and
that's
years ago.
about the most Pennsylvania Dutch last name you
Yeah,
can get, Yoder.
Don Yoder, Donnie Yoder. So yeah, anytime we see the name Yoder, I'm just like, oh, this is a reliable source, and I've yet to be proven wrong. So we're going to keep running with that. But so Don Yoder in the book Groundhog's Day, aptly titled, the seasonal turning points in the Celtic year were immensely important communal festivals in prehistoric, pre-Christian times. Of these festivals, the dates have continued to be important down to present time. The Celtic names for the four festivals were Samhain, Imbolc, Beltane, and Lungus. For the ancient Europeans, these days were so crucial and so embedded in their cultural sense of time that when the Western European peoples were Christianized, the new church, unable to root them out, baptized them into Christian holidays. So, and he goes on to talk about how they're all kind of like lumped together and everything. And again, we see this all the time. I'm not sure how much of that is accurate when it comes to like the re-Christianization, or how much of that is put on it post. We've heard other historians and folklorists kind of argue that both directions, but there are a lot of other, these other holidays that line up with this
Sure.
same day. So we can assume they're at least correlated in the sense of what they kind of
Good. It's an
mean.
idea. It's an
Right.
idea. It's a good idea. It seems to work. It's going to cross cultures.
Right, exactly. So, and what this is depending on if you call it the winter solstice and the spring equinox, it's kind of Yule and Ostra. This is like halfway between those days from a Imbolc standpoint. And so, if you're going to be doing divining or anything like that to try and figure out what the year is going to have ahead, if you're going to have, from a lot of folk traditions, if you're trying to just make it through the rest of the winter, you want to know, hey, are we like, is winter coming in soon, or do we have a lot left? And then like I said, from a Catholic standpoint, you have Candlemas, which is the I believe presentation of Christ, where in their histories and everything, that was when Mary took baby Jesus, to the temple the first time. And what Catholics do is they take candles on Candlemas to go get blessed to help them make it through the winter. So a lot of things kind of converging and everything. And where the animals and the predictive nature comes into this, it's depending on where you look. I found this listed a few different ways from the European traditions where people think Groundhog's Day came from. In some places, it's called Badger's Day, and other places it's referred to as them looking out for bears on this day. Um, I think the through line is that it's a hibernating animal. And during this time of year, if you see it out early, that is seen as either a portent of ill or favorable, favorable weather in the future. So, plus, I just like the idea of, I'm so jealous that people in Europe have hedgehogs. I would love to be able to peep a hedgehog someday in the wild. Again, the German traditions, it's hedgehogs, badgers, bears. I'm not going to try and
Oh
pronounce
my.
I'm not going to try and pronounce the Badger Day. It's Dachstag. How would you pronounce that?
Put it in the chat there. I
Yeah,
need to
it's
see it.
Dachstag. I can't my like all of my friends basically speak German and I don't. I need to just learn some of this.
Yeah, it's Dockstag
Yeah.
is that's how
So
I'd say it. So I mean, Doc, Docks and Day.
yeah. So Badger Day. So no, the early. So again, people think that this kind of came over from Europe with immigration and everything. Um, and obviously we have bears, but we don't have hedgehogs, unfortunately.
We do not.
But we do have whistle pigs. Thank God. So the earliest example that people have found from an academic standpoint in writing is over in eastern Pennsylvania in 1840. There's an example in a journal of a Welsh storekeeper saying, "Today the Germans say the groundhog comes out of his winter quarters, and if he sees his shadow, he returns in and remains there for 40 days." So it was at least happening, different parts of the state in the early 1800s. Now, apparently, later in the 1800s, you have Clymer Fries from Punxsutawney, who was the first person to report about it in the Punxsutawney Spirit newspaper in 1887. And in that newspaper, he reported about these. I'm going to put the name in here for you to pronounce it, Nick. Again, this is PA Dutch, which we know isn't exactly German, but it's you'll do a better job of pronouncing it than I can.
I will certainly try. Versamlinga
It sounds good. It is a groundhog
or
lodge.
Versamlinga.
So have you ever heard of a groundhog lodge?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. So there's pictures out there of you have people in these lodges, and it seems kind of like a Grange or like an Elks, things like that, um, where you have a bunch of people in this big hall, and there's like big, like paper mache, 6 foot tall groundhogs, and people like sing a few songs, and it seems like they just like drink and eat. Seems like a good
Sounds
time.
a great time.
It
Great time.
sounds like a great time, yeah. And but it has that same kind of like old school, almost like a cult vibe to it with like Odd Fellows stuff and Freemasonry, where it's just like you can understand how someone who's like real ethnocentric could look at this and be like, oh, this is them worshiping a groundhog or something. It has a really weird vibe to it. But if you look that term up, there's some groundhog lodges. I wish there was a groundhog lodge around here.
I think
I'd
there
hang out
are a
there.
couple left, but they don't
Really?
carry on like they used to.
Yeah. No, I wish it was just like a place you could go to after work. Other groundhog enthusiasts to gather. It sounds great. And it seems like in a lot of cases they were also there to kind of like keep a lot of like PA Dutch speaking and traditions alive kind of thing. It wasn't just about the Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I
Um,
had alluded earlier to like
mhm.
fraternal orders and
Yes.
whatnot and ethnic clubs. And
Mhm.
so it sounds like the history is kind of lining up with what I
It
figured.
is. Yeah, exactly. And that's see, I wasn't too shocked to find that that was kind of like the impetus it seems like. But it is funny how like if you look at how some of the people have written about this, there's just a lot um of like different traditions kind of coming together and melding and coming back up and everything. And like we said, the Elks kind of started this, at least formally, in a sense, in 1887 in Punxsutawney. Now they didn't actually name him Punxsutawney Phil until the 1960s.
I'm surprised they waited that long.
Right, yeah, because one, it's a good name. It's an obvious name, like Phil.
Yeah, get that alliteration in there.
Right, yeah, you have to, dude. People love alliteration.
It's
It's
why Taco Tuesdays is as popular as it is.
right, exactly. I mean, there's a few reasons, but that's one of the primary drivers. I'd agree.
That's true. Tacos are great.
Right, and yes, tacos. So, so that's kind of when the current iteration of Groundhog Day kind of started in Punxsutawney. And like you mentioned, Nick, there's Gobbler's Knob, which is a
Terrible name,
it's
honestly.
it is it's up there with like Booby's Tavern. Like I'm really keeping it together right now. But it's an interesting name that I bet people around there have a good time with it, is all I'm going to say. But so people gather at Gobbler's Knob, and that's where they have like it's like, it looks like it's like a big, kind of cartoonish tree stump, um, where they grab Phil out of and everything. Like you said, Nick, he doesn't live there all year. He normally lives in the library, I believe.
You are correct. In fact, if you go to, there's a square in town. It's just like a
Hmm.
park. The library is up against one edge of that square, and there's like his den. You can look in the window,
Hmm.
and sometimes you see him maltzing around there in the children's section of
Yeah.
the library.
So we keep referring to Phil as like in the singular sense, obviously. So one of the things that is interesting about this is people ask, like, oh, well, how do they, you know, can't be the same groundhog from 1887. That would be
Now that
ridiculous.
we've grabbed onto the obvious,
Yes,
yes.
yeah. Someone, those of you, the students of science out there, may question a groundhog that's living for for that long. Don't you worry, because every summer they have a picnic. So this is the opposite end of the year. They have a picnic, and there is a secret elixir that Phil drinks every summer. And every time he drinks from this special elixir, he gains 7 more years of life.
My God.
So you compound that, he's good for a long time. So even if something catastrophic happened to Gobbler's Knob in Punxsutawney, and he wasn't able to get this elixir, he's going to be around for quite some
It's
time.
like a tetanus shot, really. Good for
Yeah.
7 years and all
Hmm.
that.
Right. And he gets a new one every year. So he's just stacking them. So don't worry. The groundhog isn't immortal. That'd be crazy, right? No one's gonna buy an
That'd
immortal
be
groundhog.
dangerous almost,
Right,
really.
exactly. Yeah, a,
It's
a
like the
death
Highlander of,
of
you know,
groundhogs.
yes.
Yeah, like an immortal whistle pig. That just, yeah, that'd be a bridge too far for most people. Um, so like this is again an example of something that like people just like have a lot of fun with, that has like a lot of like folklore kind of like embedded into it. And like we said, there was the film that came out in 1993, Groundhog's Day. Um,
It holds up.
it holds up, dude. I watch it every year, and it really does. Like, not only is it super quotable and everything, and not only is like the message of it really fun and really like it gets you. It's very like Zen Buddhist. It's very much like trying to like release from samsara and everything. It's a pretty wild movie, philosophically. There's a pun for you. But that kind of like I think catapulted Groundhog's Day into like at least like the national zeitgeist. But it seems like people love reporting on it every year because it's like this quirky folk tradition where you have a bunch of people in a backwoods town in Pennsylvania talking about a groundhog that predicts the weather and everything.
Hmm.
And it just has that same. Whenever we talk about folklore and paranormal events throughout history, how often is it framed as backwoods people holding on to something quirky? Like how quaint of these people.
Well, I think of the ball drop in Times Square as kind of being the same thing. And of
Hmm.
course, and we wouldn't call those backwoods people. I would. I don't ever want to do that. It sounds awful, really, to be in Times Square during all that madness. But the bottom line is, you bring this up, like, did the movie make it really popular for people outside? I don't know because I don't know living in this area for as long as I
It's
have. And
so
you've
normal
lived in
to
this area
us.
your whole,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
lived within an hour of this place your
Hmm.
entire
Right.
life.
Right.
Like there was never a time when local news wasn't reporting on these things. It's
Hmm.
kind of hard for us to really have a ball on it,
Right.
where it went and everything. But now I have a question for you. Have you ever gone?
Hmm. Yep. We went for college the one year, and we weren't like we didn't like go and party or anything. We just went to like hang out. And we were lucky where that year it wasn't terribly cold. It was like in like the mid 30s. So like it was perfectly fine. And we just kind of drove out at night, hung out for a few hours, and came back in the morning after getting pancakes for breakfast. But again, it was thousands of people were there.
Yeah.
It was a big event, but I was very impressed with like the logistics of the town. Like there was places to park, everything around Gobbler's Knob was like shut down. There was lots of like live music and like vendors and stuff and like heating stations and like it
Oh,
was it
it
was
really is the whole town comes out.
yeah, right. I'd say it's on par, honestly, with like, at least in this area, I'd say it's on par with like Autumn Leaf Festival and like stuff like that, where
See, I think
it's
it's bigger. It's bigger than that to me because with the attention, certainly the movie brought more
oh for
attention to
sure
it.
in that sense, yeah.
You will see people that are clearly from way outside
Right.
the area. You get a lot of international tourists to
Hmm.
it. So,
Right. Right. No, that is true. And we talk often about like how towns latch on to like stuff like this
hmm
and really kind of like drive it into the ground. I think Punxsutawney is one of those places that does it well. It's kind of like I'd
I
say
agree with that.
I'd say generally speaking, I'd say it's kind of I mean the Mothman Festival is much newer, obviously. But as far as like places that like do it well and everything, I'd say Punxsutawney really does. One of the places I really want to go check out that I haven't seen before when I was researching this because again, there's like all this like weather prediction and everything in Punxsutawney. Have you seen the Weather Discovery Center in Punxsutawney? Have you ever been
Yes.
there? See, I've never been there. It looks because we always talk about like really good music, like really good like science museums and everything. It looks sweet. I'm not prepared to say. I'm hoping it's kind of like the PA Lumber Museum that I've talked about many times, where it's like
It just surprises you
yeah, it
with
looks
how in
so
depth
yeah,
it gets.
so like first good day we have where it's not 6 degrees outside and snow everywhere. I might drive up to Punxsutawney to check out that place. But but overall, like I think it's interesting because when people talk about like predicting the weather and everything, that's something that I think a lot of people do in various degrees where they don't really think about it as folklore. They think about it as like natural occurrences, you know? Have you ever heard that whenever you see robins eating off the ground, that means it's basically springtime? Have you ever heard that?
No, but you know what? I'm thinking about a book real quick. Pause one sec. Let me check something.
Sure.
So you brought about hit me with a couple more of those because I think I've got some in a book I can cite here.
Oh, well, so again, the one I always think about is whenever, because I remember my grandmother used to say this, that whenever you see robins eating off the ground as compared to hanging out in trees and everything, that's when you know it's basically springtime. Like you're not getting any more snow after the robins start eating off of the ground. Which again, I never thought of as like Phil predicting weather or anything, but it's more like, oh, like the robins know. It's this idea that the robins know something that we don't. Like there is some sort of natural order happening that they're tuned into that we aren't. Um, and so that I can imagine myself being someone who like, well, when you see a bear out from hibernation early, you're like, oh, it's I guess we must be in for an early spring. and whatnot. So like I can kind of relate to that. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Well, yeah, I actually went to some of the writing, the collections, folklore from Pennsylvania's Northern Tier from
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
James York Glim.
I love that book. Yep.
And this is his Flatlanders and Ridge Runners. And really, sure, Pennsylvania folklore. This is a great collection, as is his Snakebite.
hmm
Everybody interested in Pennsylvania folklore should have them, but really, if
Yeah.
you are interested in folklore in the Americas in general,
Right.
he really did try to use very traditional methods by
hmm
which to collect these tales. And there are a lot of, in a whole section of proverbs and proverbial expressions, the entire
Oh,
chapter.
you're right. I know.
There
I
are a
know.
lot of
I know
weather
exactly what you're
ones.
talking about. Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
read a few of these.
Please. Yeah.
Some of them are just goofy,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
Let's see. A swarm of bees in May is worth a load of hay. A swarm of bees in June is worth a silver spoon. A swarm of bees in July ain't worth a fly. Apple blossoms in the fall sometimes bring no winter at all.
Mm.
Yeah, let's see where else. I know there's a couple more here. I just saw one. Here's a goofy one. A true sign of rain is when the eaves are running. But rain before 7 quits before 11. Yeah. If the
Right.
sun rises early and goes to bed soon, it will rain before night, if not before noon. Let's see
That's
if there's
fair.
any
Well,
other.
that even reminds me of like Red Sky and Morning Sailors Take Warning, you know?
Right.
Like there's so many things built into every culture that have to deal with like weather predictions. Because again, weather's still really important now, obviously. Um,
Absolutely. I mean,
but
again, we opened up by talking
yeah.
about some of the
hmm
really nasty
Right.
accidents on the road, so it's
hmm
definitely important as ever.
Yes, yeah, it's still important. And but even, in the not so recent past, um, that was the same way, if not more, you know?
Here's real quick two more just
hmm
for you.
Yeah, yeah.
These are not like so much sayings as like weather predictions, but they are proverbial expressions, as James York Glim coined them. There ain't much snow up here, but a lot passed through. And I think that
I like
means
that.
like you see the storms rolling by,
Right.
but they're moving quick and they don't hit you.
hmm
That heavy rain was a real frog strangler.
A frog strangler.
A
I like
frog
that.
strangler.
I like that one. Ugh.
So cold the mercury was hanging 3 clapboards below the bulb. Yeah. Anyway,
Oh, I love that. I love that.
so
Um,
yeah, it is as important as ever. So,
yeah.
obviously, I don't think anybody except maybe the youngest of children believe that the woodchuck, the groundhog being pulled from a hole in a wide farcical
hmm
spectacle, is anything other than a good time.
Right.
Nothing meteorological to do with it, but it has been called the meteorological capital or birthplace of
Yes.
meteorology in the US,
Yeah.
which again, it's definitely not.
Not. Yeah.
But it's too fun a story. It's too colorful
Right.
a folk tradition that even though, as you mentioned, a lot of other places did something similar,
hmm
for whatever reason, it stuck on here,
Right.
and now it is forever associated with the town of
hmm
Punxsutawney out in Jefferson County, Pennsylvania.
hmm Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that like again, this example of a place that does it right, it sits at that intersection between, cultural history, folklore, religion, and just kind of like the everyday experience of like, living in this part of the country. Um, where you come February, you're like, boy, how much more of this do we have?
Yeah. Now, I will say this because we talked about the different clubs and everything, and I had mentioned my
Yeah.
grandparents.
I wanted to see if
Um,
you had any inside, if you had
well,
any
yeah,
scuttlebutt.
funny enough, I mean, I did attend once.
hmm
I was because again, it was never really novel to me because of their proximity to
hmm
it. So I went in college with a couple friends. There were four of us together. We definitely snuck into the Sons of Italy, There was a couple of the workers there. They took us back to their house. We were hanging out with them. It was a good
Hmm.
time. We started walking to Gobbler's Knob around 4:30 in the morning, but the I think it was the Elks Club were having a pancake breakfast and there was no line yet. So we're like, well, we're just going to listen to this on the radio because it's mighty cold.
Yeah.
So that was my one experience being there. It was
Hmm.
a good time. We
Yeah.
got there like around 9 at night. We parked over by the Salvation Army, one of the better
Hmm.
Salvation Armies in the area. Anyway, getting back on track.
Well,
So, my grandparents now live. My grandfather is in the a memory unit in a
hmm.
town, a few towns over, still within 20 minutes, 25 minutes of
Right, it's close
Punxsutawney.
by.
Yeah, it's not the county seat, but it's substantial enough that it kind of effectively is.
Hmm.
So my grandmother lives across the street from him. When they were cleaning their house out, I was helping out, and I would go. I passed through that area. I was helping clean that out. I would go there by myself sometimes and just grab things. And
Hmm.
my grandfather was in the Korean War, and he started talking about that when he got into his 80s. He's 92 now, or going to be 92
Really?
soon. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's a whew.
Yeah, Grandma just turned 91 the other day. Anyhow,
Hey, good for her. Jeez.
yeah, she's got it going. So like it doesn't look like the 91, 92 doesn't look so bad when you're
Yeah.
carrying on like she does. But
Hmm.
he started talking a lot about that a lot when he got into his 80s, and that was
Hmm.
really interesting. One thing he never talked about, when I was going through, he had in the 1950s, he got thanks in a book about high school football plays, and it was like wing T offense for high school footballs, and he's like recognized in that book as being like
Really?
a contributor and like an inspiration for it.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I'd never
It's
heard that.
I'll
Yeah.
have to get that book back from a lady I work with. Her husband
Yeah.
is a football coach, so I lent it to him, and I'm just like, I don't know. I could tell you who won a football game if I could stay awake through one, but so I'm kind of interested in his perspective because
Hmm.
these things come back around. But that was one thing. The other thing was I opened up a box, and there was just dozens of these Punxsutawney Groundhogs Club coins. So like every year that he was a member of the inner sanctum of the groundhog, he would
Yeah.
get these coins. And sometimes they hand them out to people, but I learned that he was a member of like that inner
Hmm.
sanctum for decades. Never
Wow.
talked about it. Which is
Now,
probably why I was never at their house during
right.
Groundhog's Day either,
Yeah.
because he was just too busy.
Now, like, is there an air of like secrecy about it? Like, did he not talk about it?
I
Like
don't
because
know.
it's like you don't talk about it if you don't need to talk about it. It's like Fight Club,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because I have I think you've seen pictures of Claire and I were in Punxsutawney when she was a real young kid,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we got to hold Phil. We were
yeah,
there, it was like
yeah.
a June day,
Hmm.
and they had him out, and one of the handlers, he was wearing the top hat. He was just wearing like a t-shirt and everything, but he
Yeah,
had the top hat on. So there is like a spectacle. There was
yeah.
nobody else there. It was a Sunday, and he
Wow.
had brought him out, I don't know, to get some sun. I have no idea
Yeah,
why he had him out. Maybe he had to go to the vets, but
yeah.
he let us hold him, and we got our photo taken with him, and
God, I'm
that
so
was neat.
jealous.
It
Yeah,
was really neat. There wasn't a line or anything. It wasn't a
yeah.
meet and greet. It was just we were in town, and we were chatting, and he let us hold Phil. Well, he let me hold Phil. He let Claire pet him, and we got some photos, and that was really cool. I'll have to find those, but
Yeah.
he was wearing the top hat. There was no need for that. So it wasn't like he was trying to hide his identity behind a mask or anything, but it was clearly like, no, 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 no. I'm
If
cleared to
you're,
handle this
yeah.
mammal because look, I'm wearing the
Do you see the
hat.
top hat? Yeah.
Like who else is going to be wearing the top hat? There's not a Lincoln impersonator and this guy was not of that sort of build. He looked like, as I said before, dudes that like to throw a few back and,
Yeah.
have some fun. He was a
Yeah.
fun dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through,
I
good
just,
guy.
I
So
love
yeah,
the,
I have a couple of these.
that's so
And
wild.
just the other day, a friend of mine, I work with her. She was
Mm-hmm.
texting me and she's like, "I'm so glad you told me this very story because
Mm-hmm.
my sister was out at Groundhogs Day and she was telling me about like she got this coin and I was able to tell her all about the coins and
Yeah.
and she thought I knew so much and I was just able to kind of like drop it haphazardly like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
of
Well, you want to be
course.
cool about it. You
Like
mean,
like she was the insider here and I'm
yeah.
like, you know what? I'm very happy for you.
Oh, yeah. That's a good, that's,
So, and now in full confession, I don't know. Maybe a bunch of people have these coins, but yeah, I found it and it got me talking and I learned that, oh no, yeah, he was involved in that for a
yeah.
number of very, very silly years. What I did not find when cleaning out their house, though, was any top hats. So I'm thinking that the top hats are communal property.
Okay. Like it's kind of like, the
That or
nine.
so many winters, and he was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
Now I'm not in the inner sanctum.
I
Am
like
I
to
really
think that
going to need this
it's,
top hat?
yeah, I like to think it's like the nine rings,
Yes.
uh,
It's
you
this
know,
Dantean
right.
labyrinth.
Exactly. That's what because again, God, I love the idea of people doing something that is this fun and being like dead serious about it.
Oh my gosh. So
And
serious.
just keep the
Was he
joke going.
ashamed? He's
Yeah.
like, like I can talk
I hope
about
not.
being on a Navy destroyer,
Right, yeah.
but I don't know if I'm ready to share about, because that's the other thing. I would not have picked him. Like he was a
Yeah.
magnate in town.
Right,
And
yeah, he was, yeah.
he doesn't get out anymore.
Hmm.
But anytime we would go out, random people would stop him. Like
Yeah, he
everybody
would.
knew he was. He taught at this school. My grandmother
Hmm.
taught at the school too. But he was the football coach,
Hmm.
and he was on a bunch of boards. So he was a magnate.
Hmm.
He was not a drinker. He would
Hmm.
have a glass of wine at dinner.
Right.
That was it. That was it. He
Yeah.
was not a party guy.
Right.
He
Right.
was like he would go out to dinner.
Hmm.
He would, we would go to Mancuso's bar. I would go with him when I was in
Hmm.
town. Mancuso's bar at 7 in the morning on a Saturday and have cranberry juice and chat with the other old men.
Yeah.
It was quite the life, honestly. And
Yeah.
he's still
Yeah.
around. He's still around.
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, he wasn't like he wasn't like throwing back a few. I don't know if he ever drank beer in his life.
Right. But he clearly wasn't in it for like getting rowdy
But
kind of
he was
thing.
certainly in the different organizations and
Right.
everything, and just being a magnate in town. I think it was something that must have just been offered to him at some point, and
Right.
he
Yeah.
rolled with it.
Right. Well, and if someone offers you admittance into a
If you're
groundhog
walking down the
lodge,
street today
yeah,
and a stranger approaches you, says, "I have a
Wh-
woodchuck,
here's your
needing
top hat.
handling,"
Yeah, here,
right?
yeah. I
You
have a
don't,
woodchuck. He is immortal
right?
and he predicts
We
the
make
weather.
sure of that. Well, he's not technically immortal, but
Yeah. Right.
we
No, that's,
think
you're right.
that
You're right.
we
Yeah.
think the elixir is cumulative, so
Yes.
it's more or less.
Here's your top hat. Like you say yes every time.
Every time.
Like that's like
I've never said no.